UFC 325 comes to a conclusion. A card riddled with many stories to be able to tell. A lot of city kickboxing prospects and dudes up and coming on this card need to be able to build up their repertoire and usher in a new regime and next gen in the UFC. And as well as topping off, I would want to say the main card, the last three fights, with a lot of storylines and a lot of moving on in the cards in terms of the rankings for those divisions. But we start off the card with Road to UFC fights, three of them on the early prelims. First one being Sulan Grangbo versus Lawrence Louis. Lawrence Louis comes out on top on this one, wins by decision, should have won. He just dogged it out. He just had more fight in him. He wanted it a lot more than Sulan Grangbo. It could be easily told, especially in the second and third round. In that first round, though, it was definitely a scrap. These guys were letting it hang out, letting it swinging and banging on the feet in that first round. So, I mean, if you want to be able to give it to Sulan Grangbo with him getting the better of the work in that first round, really just landing the harder shots compared to Lawrence Louis, who was having a bit of success, but really was not looking as fluid and as good on the feet, if you want to be able to say, compared to Sulan Grangbo. But then you move on to the second and third, where you got Lawrence Louis working in the clinch, working on the fence, getting the takedowns, just outworking Sulan Grangbo. Sulan Grangbo, every now and then with pot shot, have a combination or a shot every now and then that he would land that would be very clean. But overall, throughout the entirety of the fight, Lawrence Louis was in control and really just wanted it more and out hustled Sulan Grangbo for the win. And moving it up the card, and we got a tough one, a tough pill to be able to swallow for Sebastian Zale versus Koichiro Nakamura. Sebastian was in control throughout the entirety of the fight, especially with his boxing, working shots down to the body, working with shots up top. He really was just I said outworking in the first one, but he was just outdoing Nakamura. Nakamura didn't really have much, especially on the feet. Every now and then he would show like a fancy kicking technique every now and then against Sebastian Salazar, but really it was just Sebastian being in control, having the better work, really lulling the action and dictating the pace that he wanted to be able to do so. And in the third round, Nakamura came out a lot more stronger, a lot more aggressive, and Sebastian fell into the play of his hands, and instead of playing it a little bit more safe, wanted to be able to mix in things and get into a bit of a firefight. And Nakamura throws like three knees up the middle. Two of them, I think, land to the body against Sebastian. And then one finally lands on the chin and just slums Sebastian down, has him hurt really badly. And then eventually it goes into a stoppage win for Nakamura. Great comeback win for him in the third round. He was really down and out, especially in those first two rounds where he looked like it was going to be out of it and on his way to be getting 30-27 on the cards. But really, again, nice comeback win for Nakamura. And now moving up the card, and we got the last fight for the road to UFC, that being Sung-Woo Kim versus Dom Mar-Fan. Or Dom Morfan. Anyways, Dom Morfan. He is making a fan out of me. That guy is absolutely nasty on the feet. First round, though, Sung-Woo Kim, I think, was in control. He got some of the takedowns, got the work along the clinch on the fence, really was just in control of everything that was really happening in that first round. Second and third round was very different. Dom Morfam started to be able to implement his physicality. He was the one initiating things along the clinch and along the fence. The striking was nasty. I think there was a time where they were showing a graphic that he landed like 80-something shots towards the head of Sung-Woo Kim. Nasty elbows in the tight clinch or really in close. Dom Morfam was having his work cut out there and getting a really nice win over Sung-Woo Kim, really pushing himself to be able to get into the UFC. And now to the fighters that are already paid and work really for the UFC. We start off with the first controversial, not the first controversial, but the most controversial matchup on this card, that being Con Offley versus Yitsa. Con Offley, I think, in that first round for sure won. Mixing in things in terms of getting the takedowns, having things as his control, especially on the feet, landing the low kicks, landing the jab. Yitsa in the second round completely dominates Con Offley. I mean, Dropped him badly, I think, one time early in the second round, consistently landing that left hand. I don't know how Con Offley did not get finished because he was consistently getting pummeled in the face. The jab was working really well, too. And then you got the third round, where it was very close. I think Yitzhak for sure was outdoing Con Offley. I think it was, again, still close. Con Offley was having his moments. He wasn't getting dominated like how he was in the second round, but he wasn't really in control like how he was in the first. And I think Yitzhak should have been getting the nod over Con Offley on this one, but they gave it to Con Offley. I mean, I guess, if you want to be able to call it a win for him. And now moving up the card, we got Jonathan Mikhailov versus Oban Elliott. Man, I was so damn close. I was close. In the second round finish, rear naked choke for Jonathan McCaff, where in the first and second round, where the majority of the fight was taking place, besides maybe a punch or a head kick there, Oban Elliott was in control. He was in control in terms of the scrambles, in terms of the striking. He made a very big mistake where he had McCaffrey kind of hurt and wobbled along the fence. And instead of just separating and continuously going in and striking against him, he decided he wanted to be able to take things to the ground. And to his disadvantage and to his disarray, Jonathan McCaff takes advantage of the situation, takes the back against Oban Elliott, then cinches in while Oban Elliott is kind of asleep at the wheel on the ground and gets a rear naked choke over him. Oban Elliott, man, I think he looked really good. He looked really good on the feet. He looked really crafty, but Jonathan McCaff is now 2-0 in the UFC. And moving up the card, we got Jacob Malkoun completely destroying Torres Finney. I do not know how Torres Finney did not get finished in that first round. I mean, the heart and determination of this long-limbed dude, that being his arms are so goddamn long, but he's like muscle-bound like a goddamn hamster in there. I mean, the weight is just the body, essentially, for Torres Finney, with no neck, apparently. Jacob Malkoun just did whatever he wanted to do against Torres Finney the entirety of the fight. And again, I don't know how Torres Finney did not get finished. Shout out to him. The chin on him, how he just didn't go down and just wilt to the pain and wilt to the pressure and just completely cave in. Shout out to him. He has a very big heart. And moving up the card, we got Cam Roston versus Cody Brundage. Cam Roston getting the job done against Cody Brundage in the second round, getting the TKO finished over him. One thing I will say, though, Cody Brundage, I was kind of surprised that he just didn't go in there and lay down. He didn't back down. He had some moments, especially in that first round. He was being very scrappy. He was in there, was taking no for an answer. He wanted to make things a little bit more dirty, make things a little bit more harder for Cam Roston in there. Not just knowing that Cam Roston is going to get in there and just take things easily and get things how he wants to be able to do it and however he wants to be able to do it. But eventually that's kind of how it boiled down to, and Cam Roston just on the feet with the feints, continuously moving, making Cody Brundage second guess, not really knowing what to be able to do, taking things to the ground and taking things in control, where a lot of people, even Cody Brundage himself, believe that he had the advantage over against Cam Roston. But Cam Roston just really showing layers to the game. And especially with the City Kickboxing knowing for a lot more of their striking. And now guys like him and Lawrence Louis and a lot of other guys that have been working with City Kickboxing, implementing their grappling and showing off more things that they can be able to show off in their fights. And it was very nice to be able to see that with Cam Roston just eventually annihilating Cody Brundage. And moving up the card, we got Junior Tafa losing another fight because he's not good on the ground. Have we heard this and known this all before? Billy Elicana versus Junior Tafa. I mean, in the first round, it was kind of nice to be able to see Junior Tafa go out of there, land some nasty right hands over the top, seemingly hurting and wobbling Billy Elicana every now and then, having Elicana very wobbled, damn near getting put out a few times that he was in there against Junior Tafa. But eventually, Junior Tafa, his gas tank wasn't the same how it was, and his just output was not the same as it was in that first round. He faded, and once he did fade, eventually Billy Elicana went to be able to go to the takedowns and the grappling, where he has a clear advantage over Junior Tafa. Eventually gets the back, and Junior Tafa, per usual, whenever things go to the ground, it does not work out for him, whether he gets submitted or he gets finished. And this one, again, he got submitted again by Billy Elicana by rear naked choke. And then moving up the card, Speaking of submissions, and one that we've seen a mile away, we got Quillen Killed on a still killing spree. Now I think he's 4-0 so far in the UFC with a slaughter of the lambs that we can be able to see in Jamie Malarkey. Really a face crank that just was not gonna go away at all, and was just on his way probably to breaking the face of Jamie Malarkey, and that's pretty much everything that happened in this matchup. That was not much to be able to talk about. But I mean, you got Quillen Killed, one of the best prospects so far in the UFC. And now we move on to what was absolute cinema, which was absolute peak, which was absolute best of the best heavyweights that we can be able to get. Tai Tuivasa versus Taliesin Teixeira. This was absolutely the biggest pig oink oink slot fest that we can be able to see. That was so entertaining. These guys were in the mud against each other. You got Tai Tuivasa coming out very strong, and then eventually getting taken down, and him not really knowing what to be able to do, and not being able to get up from the takedowns, and eventually later somehow, someway he wills himself up to be able to get from it, land some nice strikes in the clinch, in the in close work with the elbows, with some sharp punches every now and then. Second round, Tuivasa has more success where he's landing some low kicks. He's starting to be able to get more in the face of Taliesin Teixeira, but eventually he can't be able to sprawl correctly because he's probably 300 pounds in there on the octagon against Taliesin Teixeira. Damn near got out of the situation of a takedown, but eventually was just laid on upon and got some ground strikes poured on his face. And then you move on to the third round where Tai Tuivasa is trying his best to be able to get a knockout somehow, find a way that these dudes went to a decision, which is absolutely absurd. I think the odds on that of it going the full way was like plus 700. So if you put $10, you would have won $70. That's an easy $70 that you would have won there. But more than likely, a lot of people thinking, obviously, with the odds being that high for it being plus 700, thinking that it wasn't going to go that way, me included. Insane to be able to see ranked heavyweights with hand on their hips completely gassed out of their minds because of a few takedowns and a few heavy strikes thrown every now and then. I mean, it was just the state of heavyweight as of right now, man, is atrocious. We got Tai Tuivasa on a 6-fight losing streak. He did very well in the third round. He damn near got a finish every single time that he wanted to be able to strike and throw a punch and landed, and it hurt Taliesin Teixeira. Seemingly, if a feather would have landed on Taliesin Teixeira, he probably would have just folded down eventually. But Tai Tuivasa wanted to clinch because he wanted to rest. He wanted to rest. These guys needed rest for 15 to 20, even 40 seconds at a time, because that's how out of shape these fat, sloppy pigs were. Yeah. And Taliesin Teixeira won because he got takedowns in the first and second round. Very, very, very impressive showcase out of these guys. Now moving on to the future fight on this card, and we got. I called it. I knew it was going to be very, very close. Razor edge type of thing going on with Mauricio Ruffy versus Rafael Fiziev. While I did believe that it was going to be a lot more dynamic and a lot more output between these two guys, there was just one clear advantage that you couldn't be able to take your eyes off, and that was Mauricio Ruffy's power. While Rafael Fiziev, again, like I said in my prediction video of this matchup, is fundamentally and technically more sound than Mauricio Ruffy in terms of the striking and stand-up game that you can be able to see from the onset. Fiziev was very aggressive on the front foot in the face of Mauricio Ruffy, not giving him any time to be able to think, landing a lot of good low kicks in that first round, staying in his face, just consistently just wanted to be able to press the action and have Ruffy on the back foot, right like on the cage. Didn't shoot any takedowns because, I mean, there was a clear hole in the game of Ruffy. And, I mean, Fiziev is not the greatest in terms of the grappling game. But, I mean, he did get a takedown and have good moments against Justin Gaethje. So, I don't know why he didn't want to be able to implement that in that one. I mean, maybe, The flying knees up the middle by Ruffy was something that was probably a deterrent. I mean, he threw it a few times. Maybe not flying knees, but he threw some knees up the middle that were probably deterrents for Rafael Fiziev. But late in that first round, where Fiziev was in control of the fight throughout it, Rufi started to be able to find his moments. He started to land and have more output. Started to land his low kicks, land his jab, land his right hands, get into the flow of things, and just seemingly looking like he was on his way to be able to then get into his groove, to then really get Rafael Fiziev mixed up. Then you move into the second round, and it's kind of the same of how it was in the first round, where Fiziev is real aggressive in the face of Rufi, and Rufi again is kind of picking his spots. They're now trading with each other, a little bit of tit for tat. They got the low kicks, going back and forth. But really, Mauricio Rufi and his jab was starting to find his mark, starting to find its way, where Fiziev would probably throw a combination and land a good shot every now and then. Rufi would just go back to landing the jab, and there was lulls in action, and again the output was not what I expected it to be, but then eventually Mauricio Rufi, with his reflexes and the just quickness in terms of the advantage of having that and the power as well, just catching Rafael Fiziev off guard with a right hand right down the pipe, really hurting Rafael Fiziev very badly. And while Fiziev is badly hurt, he's wobbling all over the place, trying to gather his bearings, kind of doesn't really know where he's at. He's on the ground and he's moving around very well, trying to be able to not get finished. Stands back up and then eventually just goes down and sinks into place. It lands some nasty ground and pound for Mauricio Rufi. Rufi gets the job done over Rafael Fiziev, where again, I knew this fight was going to be very hotly and closely contested, and it was going to be very hard to be able to separate these guys, but it was just the power. The power that Rufi carries compared to what Fiziev has was just the clear advantage of where that went to Rufi. And now moving on to the co-main event, and we got Benoit Saint Denis potentially being the guy that we always thought he was going to be. I mean, absolutely annihilating Dan Hooker. Benoit Saint Denis having some issues, especially in the earlier part of that first round against Dan Hooker, where Dan Hooker was doing a really good job keeping things on the feet, landing that front teep kick up the middle, really hurting Benoit Saint Denis and having him very uncomfortable in that first round. Whenever they were striking for a little bit, though, especially where it being in the clinch, they were both having really good success where Dan Hooker would land some nice combinations to the body. You got Benoit Saint Denis landing knees up the middle or throwing knees up the middle, throwing these short hooks over the top. And then eventually, while Benoit Saint Denis was continuously fighting for these takedowns, he finally was able to get them. And while he was, you could just see the implementation of what he wanted to be able to do. Ground and pound, look for submissions, just be an absolute threat against Dan Hooker and make Dan Hooker's life an absolute nightmare down there. There was a moment where Benoit Saint Denis had Dan Hooker's arm under his leg, and the other one he was bracing it off with his arm and just was landing straight like 10 elbows right to Dan Hooker's face. Continuous ground and pound. Shout out to Dan Hooker, though. He's a tough guy, man. He was surviving like 5 to 6 submission attempts in the triangle, in a Kimura, in a straight arm lock. I mean, Benoit Saint Denis was trying to be able to pull out all the stops to eventually get a submission, but eventually settled to a TKO victory where he just continuously was just throwing these not powerful hard shots, but just continuous shots where Dan Hooker had no answer to, and it was continuously getting bludgeoned. And it just was what it was. Benoit Saint Denis now on a 4-fight win streak, and his last 2 wins against Mauricio Rufi, who just knocked out number 11 ranked Rafael Fiziev, who only lost, I believe, to Justin Gaethje in the UFC, and now Dan Hooker, who is probably one of the biggest, fan favorite type of names as of right now. I don't think he's right there in terms of the contentions of the lightweight division. I mean, you look at him against maybe Paddy the Pimlet, Paddy the Batty Pimlet, probably later in the year, or if he wants to be a little bit more active, I I don't know. I mean, he knocked out Benil Dariush too, so he's coming off quite a few finishes in that 4-fight win streak that he is. He also has a win over Kyle Prepolek, who was all right. I mean, he very close against Drew Dober, but it is what it is. Benoit Saint Denis, man, is definitely a name to be able to really be on the lookout in the lightweight division. And now to the main event, and we got exactly what I predicted. Alexander Volkanovski getting the job done on the scorecards, 49-46. Two of them on the scorecards in a 50-45, where I think that the judges' scorecards do a little bit of a disservice of how close this fight was. This fight was very, very close. A lot closer, in my opinion, than what it was in the first matchup. Volk, man. Volk is just that guy, man. He is a GOAT. He's 37 years old in the featherweight division, defying father time, coming off of two big KO losses in his resume against the number one and number two pound for pound guys in the UFC as of right now, that being Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. I mean, it's insane. It is absolutely insane that Volk is doing what he's doing as of right now, especially against a super, super dangerous opponent in like Diego Lopes, where he lost to Volk, then came back in an absolute war and a firefight against Gene Silva and knocked him out in the second round, and then now jumping back into the rematch against Volk. I like the approach better with him coming out in the southpaw stance, giving Volk something a little bit different to be able to look at. First round was very competitive, a lot more kicks to be able to show out of Diego Lopes, but I think for sure was a more clear round to Volk. I think the second and third round were the hardest to be able to judge. I think 4 and 5 were clear more Volk rounds, so I think those 3 rounds for sure were banked for Volk, where he was landing the better shots. He was continuously doing the better things throughout the entirety of the fight. I think it was the fourth round where he got knocked down, where he got flash knocked down by Diego Lopes, where he got dropped again, where he got dropped in the first fight in the second round. But still, throughout that, I think he was just in control of the entirety of the round. Same thing with the fifth, where he started to be able to implement the grappling. But I just think that the second and third round was the closest of the rounds, where it could really go either way of how you want to be able to see the matchup going down. But in totality, it was just Alexander Volkanovski just doing what he did in the first matchup, but just a little bit better. Dictating the pace, dictating the style, going on his terms. Really just, it was his environment, and Diego Lopes was just living in it. And that was Alexander Volkanovski coming out on top. Just impressive performance, where I seen this going at the same way. I thought that, again, this fight was going to be a lot more closer than the first matchup. I expected a little bit more fireworks, if I'm being quite honest. There was some lulls into action. There was times where it could be a little bit lackadaisical out of both of these guys. But again, it was just very close. And with Diego Lopes in the rounds where he could have potentially won and it'd be a lot more closer than what a lot of other people thought it was going to be, he would have good moments in like the beginning of rounds or in moments of spots compared to Volk. But throughout the entirety of the round, or let's say like the last 2 minutes or a minute and 30 seconds where the round is still kind of up for taking, but Lopes is in the lead, Volk would just take charge and just kind of take it away from him. Take the momentum, take the confidence, and just steal the round away. And again, Alexander Volkanovski, man, one of the greatest to be able to do it as of right now. Super impressive performance out of him against Diego Lopes, where another very close to competitive matchup where he's going against another guy in his prime, where the clear power advantage is on Diego Lopes' side, and obviously we can be able to see where he got knocked down twice, and obviously he got knocked out twice before be able to get this matchup against Diego Lopes. I mean, just impressive. Super, super impressive out of Alexander Volkanovski. In my opinion, I think ranked number 3 pound for pound, if we're being quite honest, tied for 8th of title defenses and title wins in the featherweight division, is the featherweight GOAT. I mean, Volk, man. Volk is just that guy. Like this video. If you obviously like this video, comment your opinions of what you thought about this card, what you thought about the main event, main card, prelims, everything. I thought this card was decent. I thought this card was very decent. With a lot of the complaints coming out about the ads and how they were doing it, and especially how it ran in that first fight card that we had against Paramount Plus, I think that in the second one, that being in the numbered event of this one, because they had back-to-back numbered events, was a lot better. They did a way better job of how they implemented the ads, how they ran, and how everything was consumed a lot better. So it's nice to be able to see Paramount Plus listen to the fans, hear out their concessions and their concerns, and actually fixing and implementing them in a way better fashion. But subscribe. If you're a UFC fan, you're an MMA fan, you love this content, you need this content. I mean, this was a really good card. Really good card. And yeah, you love it here. You need it here. You need it even more. And I got you, baby. And I thank you guys again for watching again. And peace.